Okay, I'd like to call to order the May meeting of the Lacey Historical Commission. The first thing we want to do is just do a quick roll call, just to make sure we've got quorum. It looks to me like we do, so I'll just start. Ed.
Ed Holm is here.
Okay.
Kevin Wyckoff present.
Alan.
Looks like he's still.
Alan Tyler looks like he's connecting to audio. And Kimberly, looks like you're here. And so counting myself, that gives us 5, so that meets quorum.
And can we introduce the staff as well?
Sure.
Okay.
So why don't we go around, Sadie?
Hi, my name is Sadie Siglin. I'm the management analyst in the city manager's office.
And first, Jen Burbage, Director of Parks, Culture and Recreation.
Jenny Wilson, senior.
I want to thank Jenny for facilitating tonight. Aaron Quinn Belcho is not here, nor is Carter Gibson tonight.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, I will move to the land acknowledgement. It is my turn in the cycle, what we're doing. The Lacey Historical Commission meets on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854. The next portion of our agenda is the approval of the agenda and minutes, and we have one item that's a requested amendment before we go down that path. After the agenda was printed, Aaron remembered that we had one additional item that we hadn't gotten included and that we're going to suggest putting in as item F under new business. It's to consider a letter providing historic recognition on the part of the commission for the Popke subdivision. It's the Selma Street subdivision that we've been talking about in the past. And so we have a draft letter that Aaron put together that we'll consider when we get to that point in the agenda. So if everybody's okay with that, we will add that.
I would move that we do that.
Okay. And Kevin seconds that. Any discussion in that regard? Hearing none, I would ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Alan?
Trying.
Right.
Looks like he's connecting still.
Okay. I'll say aye as well. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, that will be added. And we can then move to actual approval of the full agenda. Do people have any other suggested changes to be made? Hearing none, I will welcome a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Alan? Ian?
He said it. He said it.
You said it? Okay, I didn't
Yes,
hear it.
it's very, very soft.
Okay, thank you. Since that takes all 5 of us, that means we have no opposition to that, and that's approved. The next item we need to do is to review and approve the April 17th meeting minutes. I know everybody got those in the mail. Did anybody have any suggested changes to those?
I do.
Okay, Kimberly.
The policy steps committee we didn't not have a report. We're just still on hiatus.
Okay.
That was my only correction. Thank you.
Any other suggested corrections or changes for those minutes? So I will welcome a motion to approve the minutes with Kimberly's suggested amendment.
So moved.
Second.
And there's a second from Kevin. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Do we have audio yet for Alan?
Commissioner Tyler, where we aren't able to hear you, it sounds like Commissioner Getz can hear. Feel free to use
And,
there's a thumbs up,
yeah, that might be a way to do that.
which would be a great way to do that.
Maybe the audio.
That could be.
Commissioner Tyler, if you want to go out and try coming back in, that might be something that could help. If you can hear me.
Okay,
We have a quorum
yes,
regardless. But
we're still good. Okay, and with that, I guess the next question is whether we have anybody who signed in to make public comment.
we do not have anybody who signed up for public.
Okay. So then I think we move down to item 4. Sadie, you're up.
There we go.
Trying to hide.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Sadie Siglin. I'm with the city manager's office, and I am here to provide an update tonight about the utility wrap project. And just highlighting, we do have an amended presentation from the original agenda packet. So a brief overview, I'm going to provide a background. It's been quite a while since we were here to talk about the utility wrap project. And then taking this opportunity to review some submissions that we got and get feedback from all of you to take back to the city council for consideration in moving forward with this project. And then kind of reviewing what the next steps for that would look like. So the city of Lacey does have an adopted ARCH plan that allows for the implementation and installation of a utility wrap on utility boxes across the city of Lacey to transform them into art pieces. We did review way back in March of 2023, briefly what this project would look like, including getting feedback from this commission on themes and individuals and organizations who would be well represented in the community. In July of 2023, the city did implement and put out a request for qualifications for artists to submit art for pre-selected themes. And we did receive low participation in that. We found that the request for qualifications really geared toward professional and established artists. And the feedback was it's very difficult to create art within a timeline on designated themes. So the city then in February of 2024 reissued a call for artists, for youth artists specifically, giving them an opportunity to create works of art for the city and receive an award of $300 if their art's selected. So what we have today are submissions from this youth artist calling. The city received 13 unique responses to this calling and got submissions for 7 out of the 14 themes that we issued. I wanted to highlight here, we did receive 3 submissions that were not related to the themes we put out. So those artists were given an opportunity to resubmit a work of art that aligned with the themes we were aiming to get art for. So highlighted here by stars, we are recognizing all of the submissions we did receive from this first calling, noting that the city did receive a piece of art donated representing Nat and Thelma Jackson that will also be used for this piece. So to give a visual example, what we will be doing with these works of art is taking them and stretching them over panels so that they can be transformed and applied to wrap around a utility box. So some of the submissions that you see may be manipulated to fit the size of the box and then with consideration to which sides of the box are front facing based on their locations. I did add a map in here of the proposed locations for these first 14 themes, recognizing we have roughly 35 utility boxes in Lacey that we will have access to wrap over time. So there are a limited number, but still quite a few, and then highlighted locations that were as close as possible in relation to the individuals and organizations, whether that be an area they may have lived, a park that they helped establish, or in the case of the women's Olympic trials, we had boxes along that route. So really trying to connect where these locations and themes will be placed around the community with points of significance. The first submission that we received was a submission recognizing Cecilia Smith Carpenter. This box location is again going to be on Galaxy and Martin, closest to an area where Cecilia was. And this is the submission that we received. Some of our submitters included a little piece about what they submitted. So very impressive to see how detailed some of these were. And again, recognizing they were given the theme and information that was prepared by Eric Quinvalcho, giving historical information about the individuals, but it was really up to the youth artist's interpretation. So this is the first submission we have. The next submission that we received was to represent Vivian Hicks and Gladys Baroker. This is proposed to be located over by Mullen and Ruddle Road. And the city received a submission from a youth artist who shared a family history in aviation. I thought that was a really nice touch and interesting to read and learn about. The next submission that we received was a submission for Lacey's sister city, which is proposed to be located over by College and Martin in close proximity to City Hall. And this is the submission we received from this artist. Very, again, detailed and vibrant colored, which will be very important when looking at pieces of art out in the community. We received a submission representing the Lacey Women's Club. This is proposed to be over off of Clearbrook in Lacey, near where some of these individuals gathered at one point in time. And this is another very vibrant, colorful submission capturing all of the things they felt really reflected what the Women's Club did. I especially like the soup can edition. One theme that received multiple submissions and that I'm hoping to get some feedback from you commissioners on was Jean Liddell. We received 3 different submissions representing Jean. This box is proposed to be located over off of Mullen and Ruddle. So our first submission, this artist provided 2 pieces of art to be used on various sides of the box. So this is the first piece of their submission reflecting Lacey as a tree city, intended to be on the main display of the utility box. And then they provided an additional panel with more information about Jean, what she provided to the city, and some QR codes to information. I will highlight the city intends to put QR codes that go to the city's website that have all of the historical information on these websites, so that information would be subject to change.
And will that be true of all utility boxes? So each of these designs would actually have a QR code?
Yes, so currently the information about all of these individuals and organizations is displayed on the city's website. That will transition over to the city's public art page. So when individuals walk by these boxes, they can scan the code and be taken to learn more about the individual or organization, and then hopefully some about the artists whose work is selected. So we can really have that information available as a learning tool for the community. The second submission that we received from Jean was another very colorful piece reflecting her work toward getting Lacey designated as a tree city. And then our third submission was again another very colorful piece submitted representing Tree City. And this artist included some information about how they felt about Jean's achievements as the first Filipina mayor. So I have put these all side by side and wanted to take this opportunity, commissioners, to hear from you on any recommendations or which piece you would propose recommending to the city council for consideration.
You know, these are gonna go in people's front yards. In fact, they're going in people's front yards. You got kids drawing pictures that are gonna be there for 2 years or however long they're gonna be there.
The average expected life of a utility wrap is 5 to 7 years,
Yeah.
depending on, you know, wear and tear. Washington has a lot of water and weather, so the hope is that they can last at least for that 5-year period. But yeah, they will, in theory, be out there for quite a while, out in the community. So we again are looking for recommendations from you to take to the city council, who will make the final decision on what we're using, but very difficult when there's such great pieces.
You know, those are really nice things, but I mean, I wouldn't want that in my front yard for 5 years, about half of these. Some of them I would,
Okay.
but I just think it's I don't think that that's a good thing to have in your front yard.
Do you have a preference of the ones that are on the screen?
Yeah, I do. I like I'm obviously like the straight ones and I like the ones, you know, I like the ones with the little lady on it, the little or whatever. And then that other lady, the first one they had was very nice. That's a very nice picture. And I would like to, like this kind of stuff. That's fine.
Okay.
But I don't like 9-year-olds drawn in my front yard. So there.
And just following up, Commissioner,
Yeah.
as far as the timeline, if these were up for a shorter period of time, would that change the opinion or feeling of these arts? Say, if they were changed out every 2 years?
Even that would be too much
Even-
for me.
even that?
I wouldn't want them
Okay.
for maybe a month.
So when you talk about having this, like, this would be at Mullen and Rubble.
Mhm.
Where will it be? I mean, I noticed you had 2 of them at that corner. Where will they be, respectively on that corner?
I can go back to.
Just kind of a ballpark idea.
I see, I like those. Those are, you could do those. I mean, that's not a problem. Me,
So this one, there is one utility box that is available.
Okay.
So recognizing that there may be additional electrical boxes and other types of boxes or private owned boxes that the city does not maintain. So this would be on the city utility box.
Okay.
Which are those same larger standard sizes like this. So anything.
Okay.
There are
so
some
that-
smaller, shorter green boxes. Those are not utility boxes that the city is able to utilize for this project. So that does kind of limit when we're thinking of multiples.
Sure,
They're specified to this. So that would be roughly on that corner. And
right.
we can always get some more information and try to maybe get an actual street view for comparison for these.
I was just trying to visualize the
Yeah.
location. I live fairly close to that, and I was just curious. I was just trying to think about, okay, so where is that box on that
Yeah.
corner?
Yeah.
It's an intersection, but yeah, which,
Kind of
four
angle.
corners, yeah.
And I can get that and I will provide some follow-up information for you all, just to have a
Some of these
visual.
I'll drive by on my way home, so.
Right.
Yeah, I go through that corner a lot.
yeah.
So, I don't know, I'd be interested in other commissioners' comments on some of the drawings we've seen to date, in particular Jean Liddell's, where there are 3 different ones that we're looking at.
And we do have one more submission. Would you like me to review those and then maybe go back and review them all together?
Sure.
The next one that received multiple submissions were submissions inspired by Luther for the cultivation of lavender in Lacey. And this box is located to be off of Bulstrade, hopefully I said that correctly, and Yelm. The first submission for that piece is a youth interpretation of a lavender farm with walking paths. And then the second is another landscape piece, very vibrant and colorful. And a side-by-side comparison of the two. And I'm happy to go back and review. Do you want to start at the beginning and kind of submit one at a time? Would that be helpful?
I think the ones where there's a single submission on it, we didn't necessarily need to go back through those.
No.
Where there's the multiple, I think, yeah, I mean, out of those two, the one on the left, I can kind of see that as, because to a degree, we want things that are good art, but I can also see, we also want things that sort of blend in. And I can picture that, that intersection, because I jog by there all the time. Yeah, I can see that, I can see that on that corner.
That's how you get to the farm for that. I go out there every spring.
Which is why we chose that box in close proximity to wrap for this meeting. Commissioners, any feedback online?
Is Wyckoff related to the Wyckoff we have on this?
You mean me?
Yeah,
It's a long story, not very directly.
okay.
I haven't actually traced that back. We're all descended from Peter Claus and Wyckoff, who arrived in 1637, so.
When?
1637, so
We were
At
out of
some
our
point-
caves yet.
diverged, but I don't actually have any family around here, so.
So interesting comments from those of you who are online. Alan, Kimberly?
Of these two, I think I prefer the one on the right as being a little bit more recognizable. The one on the left, obviously, is a great kind of abstract representation of lavender, but if you don't have the explanation of what it represents, it isn't super obvious. So I think from a distance, and for people who maybe are going to drive by these things every day, and may not ever walk up to it and read any additional information that's associated with it, I'd like it to be a little bit more understandable for those that, you know, like I said, aren't gonna necessarily read an explanation.
Thank
But
you.
they're both lovely.
Actually brings up a kind of good thing. So there, with one of the Jean Liddell ones, there was like that second panel that had all that information. Will some of that interpretive aspects be added to these others that are just kind of the one image?
So referencing kind of this informational panel,
Yeah.
you know, that could be an option. And that's kind of why we wanted to come and get feedback from you all if you think that's important. The original plan was just to do the QR code, but if you feel that there is value, that's definitely information I'm happy to bring back and propose ways that that could be done. Boxes do have 4 sides, so adding some more narrative information, including names and identifying what this is representing and why we are recognizing, could definitely be added as an option on maybe the side smaller panels.
And also, I mean, you know, recognizing the artist. I mean, I imagine, especially with, you know, like the 9-year-old, I'm sure they would love that. Of just, you know, having their place in community.
Alan, have you any thoughts?
The one on the lavender, think if there was, some kind of connection to the person, maybe. Or a little
Commissioner,
bit.
unfortunately, we're unable to hear you clearly.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and shut my computer totally off because. Kim, can you hear me?
Just.
He's gonna shut his computer totally off, he said.
Okay.
Or Alan, you can just say something and maybe I can repeat it.
Okay, well, the depiction on the right was pretty intuitive. I mean, kind of understood that the one on the left was so abstract, but you know,
So that
having,
intuitive kind of looking at this piece referenced on the right, you feel that that is more intuitive to understand what that could be representing as opposed to a more abstract interpretation on the left. Is that correct, Commissioner?
yes, but I'm not against the abstract one. I think that there needs to be some kind of connection to the QR code. So somebody, you know, like having the artist name or artist age and what their experience was with that drawing, maybe would inspire somebody to actually use the QR code.
Great. And so Commissioner, just to reiterate, since we're having a hard time hearing, adding that additional piece on the side with information you feel would help bring some more connectivity to understanding what an abstract interpretation such as the one on the left could be. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think they're both really nice.
We did get some very great and nice colorful pieces, I will say, for an area that is very dark and gloomy in the winter. It's nice to have the potential of some color and vibrancy year round. Any other thoughts, suggestions, feedback, commissioners?
Going back to the Jean Liddell set, I think I ultimately find myself drawn most to the one in the middle, and it primarily because the first one kind of separates the trees and then her. Not that those aren't both critical, but that kind of separates them. This one in the middle captures both things together and in a fairly colorful way. So at least for me personally, I find that
I would agree with that.
calls more to me. And as it happens, I happen to know Jean because she was the head of the department that I was in for at the time she went through at the state.
Commissioner Tyler, did you have something to add?
No, I agree. The one in the center kind of has a little bit more connection to that person for sure.
Excellent. Well, I will now kind of reviewing the next steps. We presented this information to the Commission on Equity and they actually requested to go back and hear what you all had to say as the experts in history and Lacey. So I will be presenting your feedback and reviewing ideas with them again on the 30th, and then the Lacey City Council on June 11th will review all of the submissions and take into consideration feedback both from the Historical Commission and the Commission on Equity and provide their recommendations and options, and then follow up with them on June 18th for their final direction as to how to proceed with this project. And then the next steps would be to notify applicants whose art was selected to be used. Those applicants will have an agreement with the city where they get a $300 award for their art, and then the city will have the ability to use their art on the wraps and on the Lacey website, and then hopefully with that, collect some information about these artists to include kind of in that profile to hear a little bit about maybe why they were inspired by these themes, what they chose, and just a little bit about them as an individual. And then hoping to, before the end of the summer, complete the installation of the vinyl wraps and then be able to showcase that across the community and have that up and start this project that we're hoping to continue every 2 years in accordance with the art plan and add some more themes and works of art in the community.
And so then are you anticipating in the next 2-year cycle to do some of the other themes that weren't done on this round?
Yes.
Is that the plan?
Yes, so there were 14 themes. We have 7 unique submissions, so there's still 7 more. And I know we're always interested to hearing from you and community members about any other themes that we could use to recognize, as we do have roughly 35 boxes over time to be wrapped. So there is an opportunity also to provide more ideas for individuals, organizations, and entities who would be a good reflection of their impact in Lacey, and how we could incorporate those and tie them onto those remaining utility boxes.
I should just off the top of my head, just kind of looking a little bit at, to tie in with our next meeting, talking about the awarding of the Ken Balsley Historian of the Year this year. That was with Paul Webb with the fire department. And so the speech that he gave as part of accepting the award, talking about how that the service club kind of started the fire department.
The Elephant Club?
Yeah.
Excellent. I will add that to the list of recommendations, which at one point will come back before all of you for consideration, and our other boards as well. But thank you, Commissioner. I will add that to the list. Any other thoughts, feedbacks, questions I can answer?
You around? Alan, Kimberly? Anything more you want to say?
Nothing from me. Sounds great.
Nothing from
Thanks.
me.
Oh, Talai, good to see you.
Well, thank you all so much for all of your feedback. As I mentioned, we'll present all of your feedback and the feedback of the Commission on Equity in June to the council for consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So Dan, I think you're next up on the,
Yes. And we just want to note that Commissioner Hane joined the meeting at what, 6:30 p.m.
sure.
Just let the record reflect. Cool.
Sorry, I was late. I was caught in traffic. I signed in at 6:15.
Oh, thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
Great. So the May 7th City Council debrief, just Aaron and I wanted to thank those of you, I know I saw the both of you and anybody who was online also for the May 7th celebration. It was quite nice, celebrating History Month, and then also being able to give out the Ken Balsley Historian of the Year award at that meeting as well. First, council read the proclamation. Chair Keough was up with staff accepting that proclamation at the podium. Aaron then shared some of the things happening at the Lacey Museum. And so that was a wonderful presentation. And she also had Felicia and Fulton share out on the Oral History Project. And that was really neat. Would just encourage any commissioners who didn't get a chance to see it to go back and watch that online. But staff did a great job. And then for the Ken Balsley Historian of the Year award, Aaron wanted me to share that Paul Webb, who was the recipient, was just over the moon excited and wanted to thank the commission for the recognition. And as a show of his gratitude, he has a copy of his book to give each of you. And so I actually have those in my office. So I will, before you three leave, I'll go grab those, and any of you that are online, you can just let us know if you'd like to pick it up here at City Hall, or we could even mail it out as well. So, but Chair Keough, we really want to thank you for your participation, and again, would encourage anybody to watch it. I know you all heard about the stories of the South Sound Project from Felicia when she came to commission meeting recently. But it was really great update that she gave and that Fulton also was able to participate in. So great job to the staff. And that's all I have on that one.
It was very good, and I have to admit, it was obvious Paul was quite excited. That was great. That was great and deserved, so. I think you're still on, Jen.
So 5C, 4C, the new Museum and Cultural Center Funding Strategy Committee update. So the committee did meet April 25th, and the three main agenda items were the Lacey Community Foundation update, the new Museum and Cultural Center recalibration of the funding buckets, and the April 23rd City Council work session follow-up. So regarding, I'll start with so there's three main things. The Lacey Community Foundation. So the city has contracted with this nonprofit to develop a 5-year fundraising plan document for the city of Lacey. They've hired a sub-consultant to do the work. Her name is Jenny Folia Jones, and she came to the meeting on April 25th. And she brings a lot of great experience with her, I think 15 or so years working for the Port of Olympia in their communications and marketing, and she's currently doing some fundraising. She was telling us about some of her recent projects at the meeting. But the fundraising plan will identify strategies for annual fundraising. It'll identify community capacity, including estimates for potentially what fundraising could bring in regarding events, initiatives, and programs. It will identify funding sources such as donations, endowments, and grants, including grants that the city wouldn't be eligible to apply for, but that a nonprofit could. The plan will also identify and outline at least 2 annual events dedicated to specific projects, including one event every year for the Museum and Cultural Center dedicated to that project, and then one dedicated to another civic purpose, which city staff is going to be helping to identify. A good example is the Lacey Veteran Services Hub. As you know, the Mayor's Gala has been an event in the past that has raised money for Veteran Services Hub. But that's not the only thing, that fundraising that the city needs. Could be maybe for the senior center as well, etc. The fundraising plan will also identify times of year for those events based on what else is going on, because we don't want to saturate the community, obviously. And so yeah, some timelines based on that. And they will also create a communication strategy for the fundraising efforts. So it was nice to meet the person who's going to be doing that work, and they will continue to come to the funding strategy meeting.
Name again is.
Her name is Jenny Folia Jones.
She's been there for quite a while.
And I can make sure you have the right spelling and everything, Commissioner.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so she has her own firm now.
Oh, I see.
She's gone out and she has her own firm. And she is doing still a lot of good work in the community in her new capacity, so. And then regarding the new Museum and Cultural Center, recalibrating those funding buckets, we discussed that probably it would make sense for her to do some of that work that will help advise on how to recalibrate the funding buckets. And you probably recall at one of our prior meetings, I had, some of the main funding buckets for the new Museum and Cultural Center are the state and federal grants category, the city portion, and then nonprofit help. And so we know that because of funding opportunities that aren't necessarily coming to fruition, we need to recalibrate those buckets. So that's something that that's a main initiative of the funding strategy committee. So that'll be continuing. And then regarding follow-up from the April 23rd City Council work session, Parks funding strategy as a whole was on the agenda. And so I had the opportunity to, I shared with the committee and I'll share with you all, I was able to give a presentation about needs for Parks, Culture, Recreation system-wide. And I know this commission doesn't hear as much about, the parks maintenance side. You're more obviously interested in the museum, and that is your role. And so that makes a lot of sense, but it would be helpful just to know the needs of not only Parks, Culture, Recreation, but the Public Works, Parks Maintenance. These two departments obviously work closely together to bring the Lacey Park system facilities and programs to the community. So I shared out that the community feedback we've compiled on what residents want from their park spaces. And obviously in the comp plan, you all went through that process as well, but just a reminder, our shift away from property acquisition, but focusing more on accessibility and improvement of spaces that the city already owns for the public. I had shared the current condition, this is more on that maintenance side, is that there was a large investment back in 2002 in the city's parks system. And there was a capital bond that was able to help improve a lot of the facilities throughout Lacey. And that was over 20 years ago. Well, Lacey has had 80% growth in the last 20 years. And so that's just, as you know, one of the challenges as outlined in the comp plan is just keeping up with the aging infrastructure and then trying to work in the things that the public also wants in their park system. So it's very much a balance. I shared the Parks Capital Improvement Program, which is a 6-year look at, you know, some of the needs. And that the Museum and Cultural Center is on that list. The list is very hefty. There's the new items, and then there's also some major renovations and replacements. So I also shared, knowing that we have, you know, revenue gaps to meet the needs of the community, we need to find a path forward to be able to improve, make the improvements and maintain the current system. So we asked for council direction to support the establishment of a parks improvement funding work group. And they asked us, I gave the thumbs up to proceed with that, down that path. And so we have a follow-up discussion scheduled with the council on May 28th to talk about what that work group could look like and what the council wants to see. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. But I had shared that out at the committee meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
How much would you say, if you look at the parks overall, just kind of as a ballpark idea, how much would you say is the gap that you have on an annual basis for repair and improvement that's necessary in the parks?
Know that I have it broken out annually, but I definitely can share.
5-year period or whatever.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. Let's see, I did bring the Parks Capital Improvement Program slides. So let me share those really quick here. We'll give you a good idea of what we're looking at. So we put new capital projects on one slide and we put replacements on another. Now, this is a 6-year plan. The ones that are already funded have the green check mark and they're not included in this total. We know that this stuff moves around based on funding opportunities.
Right.
You know, for example, the Museum and Cultural Center is listed. It's placed in 2029, but it could move, you know, up or down depending on funding opportunities. So this is the, oh, am I sharing this? No, thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Sorry, audience. Apologies, commissioners. So yeah, just to note again, since I'm now sharing my screen, the projects that are funded have a green check mark and they're grayed out, so they are not included in the total. So you can see, so this is a 6-year capital improvement program. It'll be updated annually, but in the comp plan, that's a 6-year update. So that's when it gets the big update. But we'll keep it updated as we go along. But you can see this is over $60 million in a 6-year period.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also wanted to show the maintenance and operation costs that come along with some of them. And so that's estimated at $2.5 million. We have some potential partnerships over here on the side that we had explained to council are their council work plan items that there's a placeholder that council had asked us to pursue partnerships. But then if you look at the replacements, so this might be that gap that you're talking about, Chair Keough. So it's about, for the 6-year period, $6.8 million. And so the discussion was, you know, around, you know, how do we move forward, like I said earlier, with replacing the items that need to be replaced, but also introducing new things into the community that for a growing community, what they want to see. And so that's where we need help. We asked council, like, you know, we explained the what and the why. And now we need help with the how, right? And so that's where this ad hoc committee can come in to help make, funding recommendations.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, that's something.
Yeah, and we have a very robust parks, culture, and recreation system, and we're, very fortunate. It's the number one reason a lot of people choose to live in Lacey. It's the quality
Certainly
of
is.
life. We value history in Lacey and the museum, and we value open space and physical activity for wellness and family activities. And, we produce a lot of family events and a lot of really cool programs. And it costs, it costs a lot of money to have a park system like this.
Sure.
So. Yeah, so hopefully it's helpful for the museum funding strategy committee to see, that bigger picture, and of course, all of you as well, so.
Are there any other questions about this item on the agenda from any of you members?
Jen, do you have a dedicated funding source for the park?
So, we don't currently, it's general fund. And so that's where, the revenues that we bring in, aren't enough to close some of the gaps. It is a highly subsidized, as are most parks, culture, recreation systems is a highly subsidized operation. But that's, one of the things that we talked with council about is, what is that potential sustainable funding source, moving forward that could help. So we looked at all, there's another slide that I didn't share on the screen tonight, but definitely recommend watching the parks funding work session. That was April 23rd, if you want more information on it. But we looked at all the different types of funding sources. One of those being capital bond, like was in 2002. We also talked about that capital bonds don't come with maintenance and operation dollars. And there's another funding mechanism called the Metropolitan Park District, where funding can be used for, acquisition, capital or maintenance and operations.
Yeah, Tacoma has one that's structured that way.
Yep, and then there's also, PFDs, public facilities districts. Those funds can also be used in a flexible way. PFDs they have regional collaboration attached to them. Such as the current PFD that funds the Hands-On Children's Museum in Olympia and helps fund the regional athletic complex. So we went through lots of, different types of funding. So, and I can share that information with anybody who's interested as well.
Thank you.
You bet.
Other questions?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's quite, and I lived in Tacoma for a number of years, and so that's why I know that they had a Metropolitan Parks District there that covered Point Defiance and all of the parks through the city, so that was how Tacoma ultimately structured it.
That's almost a city government in of itself.
It is.
Yep,
Done
it's
a
a
great job
regional,
there, though.
right, it's a regional model. The cities of Olympia and Tumwater both have local models, which means it's the same boundary as the city boundary.
Right.
Whereas Metro Parks Tacoma, that's the oldest one in Washington State
Mhm.
and probably the largest, I would think. But that's a regional model, and so there is a board, similar to a city council, that oversees that.
There were even interesting negotiations between the police department and the Metropolitan Park District on who was covering enforcement on certain parks. Because some parks were really small parks and neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like people would literally run into one jurisdiction or the other to avoid enforcement.
I remember that.
This is back in the 70s. I
Yeah.
remember that very explicitly
Yeah, I do
occurring. So, at any rate, if everybody's ready, I think we can move on to talking about the book memorandum of understanding.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Water, Woods and Prairies. So the city of Lacey was approached by Thurston County. So basically, we just want to update you with something that Aaron and I have been working on. We thought this would be a good point to update you. So the city was approached by Thurston County at the end of last year to see if we'd be interested in printing and distributing the book that the Thurston County Historic Commission published in 2019, Water, Woods and Prairies, Essays on the History of Washington's Capital County. I think most or all commissioners are familiar with this book. The book was funded through document recording fees for projects that promote historical preservation or historical programs, which may include preservation of historic documents. And that's authorized under RCW 36.22.170. So however, Thurston County didn't and still doesn't have a mechanism to sell and distribute the books. And their solution to this challenge in 2019, and some of you will recall, was to put out a grant application process to provide funding to an organization who would be willing to do this function for them. And then that organization would be granted the books and could use the income for purposes as specified in the grant guidelines. So as some of you will recall, although the Lacey Museum did put in an application, the grant was awarded to the Olympia Historical Society, who did distribute the books to a variety of local heritage organizations, which each made an agreement with OHS to sell the books on their behalf and use the funds for appropriate purposes that aligned with the OHS grant and the RCW. So the process was successful. The books were printed and distributed, and various organizations sold them throughout the county. And we were actually one of the organizations that received the books to sell, which is how we have been able to sell the books up until now. And then when the first printing sold out almost immediately, so the books are popular, right? They sold out almost immediately, and then the county completed a second printing in 2021. And then when those sold out in early 2023, the Olympia Historical Society declined to participate in the marketing and distribution going forward. So the county hadn't budgeted for a third printing and had no means of distribution. And so that brings us back to when they approached us to consider taking this on, knowing that we do have a retail outlet to sell them in. So we can sell them at the Lacey Museum. We can actually sell them at City Hall
I think you will
as
too.
well. So yeah, we're really excited
Yeah,
about
really.
this potential opportunity. So Aaron and I have, talked a lot about this, and it is administratively a lot of work. And while we don't have a lot of time, we feel it's a really important thing to do. It's just such a great opportunity to educate, it fits in with the museum's mission, and just show the importance of history. It also drives foot traffic to the museum and builds excitement, for the museum in general. So, yeah, so as you can imagine, there's many details to hammer out, and that's why we thought, well, we'll just put the draft MOU in your packet so that you can look at it, see what's going on. I do have a summary of what is contained in the MOU if you want me to go into that much detail. Or you're welcome just to read it on your own, but it is being reviewed by both legal bodies at this point. And so there's still work to be done on it. But
I know you put that in our packet, so
yeah,
we don't need to approve that as my.
no, it's not an actionable item. Good
Okay.
question. But again, we just wanted to make sure the historical commission
Informational item.
knew about it, and yeah, and I have one of the books too, if you wanna see it. I forgot
I have
all the
one of them
books
too.
in my office, so I need to go get those and bring those over
You
here.
know, there's, for the museum itself, I mean, if you're all gonna get screwed up in it, it'd be great to have a bookstore there.
Yeah,
It really
agreed.
would. And there's a whole lot of books that are out right now that, there's some other ones too, that are out that you can't buy very much, but you see them, they pop up at places and all, and I save all those things, so I've got a whole line of them at home. I have that and presidential books is what I have. But anyway, and there's only about that much now in books that I've got, and there must be at least that much I don't know about. But I think they would market very well here.
I'm gonna bring up something that's sort of a tangent on this, but it's something I've thought about a couple times before. That might be worth considering, and the utility box thing brings it up for me as well. That is a kind of a question, or something to explore looking forward, which is whether there is a way to, and with the level of phone apps that we have at this point, if there's the kind of thing where we might be able to develop a phone app at some point. Don't know the expense versus the benefit of this. That would essentially give people guidance to tour around either utility boxes or historic sites around the area. Could draw upon material like this, something else in that regard. And I partly say that, I'm reminded of this because I was on vacation here a couple weeks ago and we bought one of those for like $16. It wasn't that expensive, but it was wonderful for providing both a cultural and a historical snapshot of the area that we were traveling through.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my wife and I both talked about it because it fed right through our radio and
Who was that?
It gave-
Had it? Where's it at? You were talking
it was one we bought out of the Google store, and I could give you the one that we use in particular, but it was really good for giving that kind of history. I mean, it gave us background on the historic places in the area, good places to see, places to stop.
about.
It was a nice contract. And so I was thinking that, it might be the kind of thing that might funnel into tourism activities in the vicinity, but at the same time kind of draw attention to the historical and some of the stories of the area. So, anyway, a thought, not something you have to do, but just suggested from both us and just thinking about how utility boxes might play to that. I just was going, maybe there's some piece of our package that can be played with.
Food
It's
for
just kind
thought.
of funny bringing that up, because if I change hats for a minute to my day job, as you're kind of explaining that, there's something like called a story map, and there's some different resources like that that are actually really easy to develop and are available on different devices and stuff like that. Stuff I do professionally all the time, of just that providing context, being able to kind of package that content together. That seems like that's something even just could be presented as a QR code on the side of those utility boxes.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking that, and the idea that if you could actually guide people around those,
Yeah.
it allows them to see those, and it further draws attention to that and to the history of the area, and you send them back to the museum.
And
Send
you
them
get
to the
some money
museum, I
from
like it.
I mean, and to the bookstore and to,
Yeah.
basically kind of they cascade on each other.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking that might be something, and it's something we could probably tag into. And again, I don't know how much work it would be.
I know.
But I do think of it as too, as something that connects you then into tourism, which is nice, both for that economic development, but also for, again, another place that you can sort of plant your flag and get people to then see the stuff that we do.
Yeah,
And then stuff that you're working on.
even like the map that she was presenting about the utility boxes, if you had that but more interactive, that people are able to, she showed the dots of where the
Right.
utility boxes are. If you could click on those and pull up an article about those people, links to other sites, being able to have some of that kind of context, just from my experience, that's some pretty off the shelf stuff that you could put together. Really, the developing the content is the big part for that.
Right.
Finding pictures, finding, the narrative that goes along with that. But the packaging it together, the technologies, I don't know what the city's licensing is with Esri, but I imagine it's probably similar to other governments, so
We have,
that's not,
we use Esri.
I mean,
So,
the
that's
one
not-
the one we were using actually meant that if you drove through certain points, it would trip the wire and say, okay, you're on this path, this is where you're going. And here's things you should see.
Who's got that?
Oh, well, they have different tours like that. I mean, my wife and I were gonna try a couple of
Yeah.
others to see what we thought of them, but. And like I said, we did it just on let's see what it's like for $17. We're really glad we did.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So,
Lots of good ideas. Yeah, I think our biggest challenge is just capacity for
oh,
projects.
I fully get that.
Yeah.
Fully get that.
But I do think technology is definitely gonna help us out, so.
And just like thinking of, some of what we're talking about here actually might sort of funnel together into something like that, so. Anyway,
Oh, and then, sorry, next steps on the book. So we'll finalize and sign the MOU. We'll notify stakeholders of the change in ownership. We would put in a budget request, because we would need the money for the printing costs, right? And then we would recoup with the sales of the book. We would need to renew copyright permissions and then determine and implement any updates needed before actually doing the next printing. So anyway, just to kind of put a closure on that last one.
And you're still on, Jen.
I'm still on, okay, so 4E, historic preservation consultant update, so you'll be excited to know, that we have, chosen a consultant. So as you may recall, we put out a request for estimates for a historic preservation consultant to help us with the McKinney House and the Jacob Smith House. A third property, the Long Lake House, which is on a recently acquired, Long Lake Park adjacent, parcel that's gonna be added into the park. We included that because we'd like some work done on that as well, and just for cost efficiency, we put those all together. So the project scope reads, the City of Lacey is seeking estimates of proposed work from a qualified historic preservation consultant to conduct research as needed on 3 historic properties to complete historic property inventory forms, or HPIF, and determine their eligibility for placement on the local, state, and or national registers. This information will be used to assist the City of Lacey in planning for the use of the properties in the future. So why are we doing this project? From your 2024 work plan is research and development plan for the future of the McKinney House. And so we're having that historic preservation review done, and then we are also, for that property, Jenny, actually, our senior parks planner, is heading up a wetland mitigation process to understand the historic integrity of and the possible uses for the property as we consider its future. And that the wetland is an RFQ wetland work, and it's due next week. So that's on a separate request that has gone out. So, and then the Jacob Smith House was found, if you recall, not to be on the Lacey Register of Historic Places as we originally believed. So a new nomination form needs to be created. So that's the main driver with that one. The Long Lake House, as I mentioned, we just want to explore what options there are for the use of the property. So yeah, so we received 5 estimates for the project, and after Erin's, done a lot of work on this, appreciate her efforts here. After a thorough review and reference check, we've chosen Drayton Archaeology from Blaine, Washington as the consultant, and we're working on a contract right now, and hopefully we'll be ready to begin work here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll certainly keep you updated, but we are very excited to be able to start this work.
Great. Any questions on any of those items, Alan?
No.
Okay, I just saw your light flip up on that, so I thought, oh, maybe you got a question. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to the one item that we added, and this is about the Popkey's subdivision historical recognition.
Yeah, so last month we reported on the result of the Selma Street request. And after the meeting, John Jajic requested that the commission supply a letter of support as they work forward, as the Historical Society moves forward, working with the property owner and, and or any granting agencies to develop a historic marker to honor the Popkeys. And so we apologize for not getting the letter in your packet. I brought hard copies for those of you that are here tonight, and we can pull it up on the screen.
Thank you.
This is an actionable item. However, if you need more time, I'm happy to put it on the July meeting since there's no June meeting. And so this would be commission supporting the efforts of the Lacey Historical Society. And Jim, do you wanna read the letter, and I'll pull, let me.
Okay,
pull it up.
I'll let you pull it up first.
Okay. Yeah. Get everything to share. And we can make any edits here, or again, if you would rather think on it, we can certainly bring it back in July.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read it. To whom it may subject Popkey's subdivision historical recognition. To whom it may concern, the Lacey Historical Commission would like to express their support to Cheryl Malkmus and the Lacey Historical Society in their efforts to recognize the historical significance of the Popkey's subdivision, including Selma Street, or originally Selma Avenue, and Lacey. Wico, did I get that right?
Sure.
Wico, okay, I'll make sure. Baron Buster and Selma Laughlin Popkeys were married in Seattle in 1931 and were residents of Lacey from 1942 until their deaths respectively in 1979 and 1994. They were active in local construction development as well as community affairs, including the Lacey Lions, the Winifred Schmidt Orthopedic Guild, and the Olympia Eagles Lodge and Auxiliary. Their son Lester attended Lacey's grade school. Buster worked in construction and real estate. In 1947, the Popkes developed several subdivisions in the Lacey area, including the Popkes subdivision, which had 10 residential lots facing Selma Street, named to honor Selma Popkes. The Lacey Historical Commission wholeheartedly supports the Lacey Historical Society's development of a historical marker or equivalent on or near Selma Street and the former Popkes subdivision to recognize the Popkes and their contribution to Lacey. Sincerely.
That's a good one.
The question is, do people have any suggested changes to this? Are we ready to?
They were married in Seattle.
Pardon me?
They were married in Seattle.
Okay,
Oh,
we're not married in Seattle?
For me,
They were married in Seattle?
we're not. She said we're not.
Okay,
Okay. So what we should probably do is not sign it tonight and check all the information and then,
I don't know. Maybe somebody, I don't know who wrote it, so.
okay,
okay, well, we can,
so we can do a double check
why
on
don't we,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great reason to double check
Yes,
and bring it back in July.
yeah, and if there's any other changes she wants to make on it,
okay,
they've worked hard on this thing.
okay. Any other comments before we move on from this? Hearing none, I guess my thought is that we'll just make, I would, I guess, welcome a motion to put this on our agenda for July. And to get a revised letter at that stage of the game. Does that
I would
sound
so
good?
move.
Yeah, and I don't know, we don't need a motion for that.
Okay.
We'll happily put it on the July
Okay.
agenda for you.
That sounds good. Okay, so let's move on to reports. Lacey Historical Society. Yes,
I'm not done with the subdivision. If I go back to my information and I find, there. If I have a correction for the letter, who should I direct it to?
Aaron.
Erin?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Think you're over the top now. You're getting there.
Yeah.
So now we get to have you talk anyway. I'm assuming you're here representing the Historical Society. No, okay.
No, actually, Tim McGuire was going to attend, it looks like, but I
Okay.
don't see that they're here.
Okay. So, we will move on. Kimberly, I think you're up.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. You're on hiatus, is that
We are
correct?
still on hiatus. Yep.
Thank you.
We'll make sure and get that right.
So
in the minute.
Kimberly, while we have you up to, and you said you have nothing else to report, right? Besides
else.
this, okay,
That would be correct, sir.
okay, Alan, do you have anything?
No, but I would like to acknowledge Jen for her recognition in the community as far as being a leader. Did you hear that?
I couldn't hear what you said. I heard Jen.
I said I would like to acknowledge your recent well, you were nominated what is or received an award as Administrator of the Year. Is that what it was?
Oh, so, okay, is it the Seroptimist Award?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's one of the, I think, Exceptional Woman Award. Thank you.
So anyway, I'd just like to officially acknowledge that for the record, and congratulations. You weren't here for it last.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Alan. Talai,
Hi, good evening. I was just going to let you all know that we have our upcoming Lacey Polyfest next month. It'll be a 2-day event this year. And it'll still be at the rack as well on the 28th and 29th of June. And we look forward to having our interview with the library, that will be recorded also as part of that project as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad you participated in that. Ed,
I have nothing, thank you.
okay,
I have nothing to report as well.
okay, Kevin. And, yeah, mostly I've been continuing just to work on the Lacey Leader. The interesting part in this particular cycle has been that I ran into a bunch of St. Martin's picks, including, a couple of fun ones about KGY, which I ended up passing along to Felicia. One showed the shack with buildings being built around it at the time. So it gave an idea of how much it preceded much of the development at the top of the hill. And then there was a subsequent one that showed a parrot that was uttering to do KGY, can't get you. So at any rate, they apparently they had that up as one of their mascot pieces in the cabin that they subsequently developed, where they were doing singing and singing in interviews. So those are both kind of fun pieces that we ran into as we were going along. Otherwise, nothing in particular, so.
So I will do the museum curator's report since she's not here. But Erin wanted to share that after painting, they reinstalled Journey Stories and Lacey's 50th anniversary exhibit and had platforms made for the upcoming Live from Lacey exhibit. So that's happening over at the museum. And they had shared at the May 7th council meeting a couple of pictures of the museum with the fresh paint. So make sure and stop by the museum. I'm going on Friday to see what they've been working on, so I'm really excited about that.
It's really quite nice.
And then Olivia and Felicia prepared exhibit images for Live from Lacey exhibit and mounted those on foam core. Stories of the South Sound. Fulton and Felicia completed 6 oral history interviews and began transcriptions for that project. And then the final history talk of the season was Lester Dixon on Prince Hall Freemasons. And so that's the final one for the season, and history talks will resume in the fall. That's all for Erin's report. And then for the director's report, so I wanted to let you know, Carter and I met separately than the April 25th Museum Funding Strategy Committee, where I mentioned the Lacey Community Foundation was present, but we met with Jenny Folia Jones on May 2nd to kick off the contract, share materials, set up monthly meeting times, and ask her to give us a timeline and rubric, for the work that she's going to be doing. So we did have that meeting. Oh, the RAC kiosk. Thank you, Jenny, for snapping a quick photo for us. I'm going to share my screen. You can see it's all fenced in there. The foundation work is complete. And the Thurston County Historical Commission started assembling. They're not done yet, but they did start assembling the structure. And that was last week that they started that. So things are coming along. And I didn't know if you had anything else, Chair Keough, on that, or?
Nothing else that I've heard so far. I think we're pretty close to having, I think largely most of the narratives and most of the photos. I know they were still assembling, but I think they've got almost all those pieces. They were running some pieces back by Erin to do last week's, basically. So. Yeah, so that's exciting. And then I think you all saw the invitation for the Ken Bosley Memorial Bench dedication, that got rescheduled to May 30th at 2:00 p.m. at Civic Plaza.
And we, would ask you to forward it to anybody else who you think would be interested. We have distributed to boards and commissions, to city council members, to,
And I sent it
Couple
to
of the Lacey
historic-
Rotary
I sent it to the
clubs.
Thurston County Historic Commission.
oh, great. Okay, perfect.
And I was thinking he's quite involved with them as well.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good thought. And just to let you know, we'll have any city council members and any commissioners that are there come and help cut the ribbon for that bench. And I unfortunately won't be there, but Erin will be, and we've got other staff support as well. And then I just quickly wanted to let you know Lacey Spring Fun Fair is happening at St. Martin's University this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So check out laceyparks.org for more details or to see any of the activities or performances that are happening. There's a couple different stages. Okay, yeah, it's a really fun time and one of our largest, it's our largest 2-day event, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just a reminder that there's no meeting in June for this commission. It falls on Juneteenth, which is a holiday, so.
So I'm gonna go wedding instead.
Yep. That worked for your travel plans, didn't
It
it?
does.
So unless there's any other items that people want to bring to the floor, I think I'm open to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
Kimberly's right in there too.
Oh.
So are there any objections or any items to be raised? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think we're done. Thank you all. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
See most of you in July,
Thank you. Good night.
unless they see you between here and there at some of these other events.